Hello, hello, and welcome. I am your host Buddha, and we're gonna right to it. This is the Georgics of Virgil. I may not get right to it, but this poem starts. I'm on the second Georgic now, but it started out with the first one where we basically talked about looking for the signs that the nature of the earth will show you in case there's a storm or flooding or drought. Looking for the signs in the animals, looking for the signs in the wind, looking for the signs in the rain, and just being aware of, you know, what nature is telling you. Because nature has a lot to say. So, let's get into the groove of things. Oh shit. Let's go. I'm really feeling a blizzard. What's this? Let's turn just a little bit. So, we are on the second Georgic. So far, my song has been about the stars, and about the cultivation of the fields, and Bacchus. Now my song will be of you, and the new growth of saplings in the woods, and the offspring of slow-growing olive trees. O Bacchus, come, be here amid your plenty. The field, with all the produce of the vines, is flourishing for you, and the foaming wine is almost overflowing in the vats. Come, Bacchus, tread barefoot and buskinless, as I do, in the must the wine is made from. Nature has many ways of growing trees. Some kinds spring up and spread all by themselves, as if they came from nowhere, and they take possession of the fields and all along the banks of the winding streams. The yielding osier, the pliant broom, the poplar, and the throngs of willows and their gray-green silvery leaves. Some, like the lofty chestnut, or that tree that extends its great shade over Jupiter's grove, of oaks the Greeks thought of as oracles, rise up from the seeds that have fallen to the ground. Others, such as the elm and the cherry, are born of the undergrowth that proliferates from the root of the parent tree. Parnassus's laurel begins as a little thing in the great shade of its mother. These are the ways that nature has provided for leafy forests, sacred groves, and orchards. Experience has found that there are other ways. One farmer breaks off shoots from the parent trunk, puts down the little stems into the earth, first having taken a knife and carefully split the buried end of the stems, or sharpened them to help the earth more easily receive them. There are trees with branches that wait to be arched over and planted still alive in their earth, after a time developing new roots. Some need no roots, and the pruner simply cuts a budding branch from somewhere high in the tree and sticks it into the ground, and there it grows. And sometimes, amazing to say it, when you cut open the rotting stump of an old dead olive tree, lo and behold, a new young olive root has thrust its way forth. And often we have seen how shamelessly the branches of one tree have turned into the branches of another. The altered pear tree bearing grafted apples, or stony cornels reddening on a plum tree. Therefore, O farmers, learn what you have to know, the appropriate way to cultivate each kind, to discipline their wildness, make them tame. Don't let your land lie uselessly unused. It is a joy to cover with vine the slopes of Mount Ismara, and a joy to adorn the sides of the great to bar on us with olive trees. My back hurts. It's better. Masoneus, you whose favor is my pride, O you whose merit plays the greatest part in all the honor I've had. Masoneus, come, spread sail, make haste across the sea. I cannot hope my song could tell it all that there is to tell. Not if I had 100 tongues or mouths, a voice of iron. Come, coast along the shore, the land is near. Nor will our journey together be hindered by inordinate prefacing, fanciful songs, circuitous wanderings here and there among the byways. The trees that rise up of their own free will into the light, wild, happy, in the strength they got from nature's power in the earth, do not bear fruit of their own spontaneous selves. But if they are grafted, or taken up and replanted in holes that have been carefully prepared, they'll give up their wildness and, with frequent tilling, be ready to learn whatever you want them to learn. It's just that way if you cut a barren stem from low down on the tree and transplant it out in an open, sunlit field. Left as it was, it would be overshadowed by the abundant leaves and the branches of a mother tree, and its blighted berries would shrivel up and dry. Even as they tried to grow, and the tree that arises from the seeds that fell and scattered on the ground develops slowly and lives to give its shade to many later generations, its fruit is degenerate, having long ago forgotten its ancient taste, and it hangs in unsightly clusters, fit for nothing but for birds to ransack. Okay. In every case, hard work goes into the task of ordering the trees, a lot of work to bring them under control. Stakes are best to support for olives, and layering best for vines. Myrtles do best when the solid stem is planted. You can propagate the hazel, whose wood is so hard from the little slips, also the poplar tree, who leaves Hercules plucked to make his crown. So too the great Chinoan oak, the towering palm tree grows from slips, and the silver fir that's born to know the dangers of the seas. But the bearded wild arbutus can be grafted with a walnut shoot, and the sterile plane has often been seen to carry vigorous apple boughs. White chestnut flowers have blossomed on the beach. Pear tree flowers have blossomed on ash, and swine have fed on acorns under the elm. Stock grafting and bud grafting aren't the same. In the place on a tree where the buds are just emerging and breaking through their tender sheaths, a thin incision is cut, just as that piece, and then a bud from another tree is introduced into that slit where the bark is full of sap, and it's taught to grow and develop where it is. In the instance of stock grafting, the cut is made where knots are absent, and therefore wedges are used to open a path deep into the solid wood, and then a slip from some fruitful other tree is introduced, and it isn't long before a new tree is towering over toward the sky, exulting in its boughs and full of wonder at its foliage and its fruit, so unfamiliar. And furthermore, all sturdy elms are not the same as all the others, nor all willows, all lotuses, all cypress of Ida, all olives aren't the same in how they're grown. Orchard, radius, bitter Pausian, All apples aren't alike, or the fruit that grows in the gardens of Alasunus, Syrian pears, and Crustuminian volema, and the big pears shaped as if by the bow, as if by the hollow of the hand. None of these is grown from the same cuttings. The grapes we gather from our vines are not the same as those they gather from the rimes of Lebos. There are the vines of Thasos and the Merotic vines. Rich soil is right. For the one less rich for the other, Scythian grapes are the best for raisin wine, the subtle Aegeans, likely to tie up your feet or tangle your tongue. The Radic wine, the purple, and the Presian. How shall my song be adequate to them? Yet none of these can rival the Falerian, the Falnian, and then there are the Eminanian vines, producers of the most full-bodied wine, to which the Timolean defers, and even the royal Phaeacian wine of Chios, and the wine called Lesser Argidus, outdoing all the others in staying power and magnitude of yield. Nor vine of Rhodes, so pleasing at the table, be it of gods or men, for the second course, would I omit my praise of you, nor you full-breasted clusters of Pumatas. And yet there are so many kinds, so many names, I couldn't possibly hope to list them all. To try to do so would be so tantamount to trying to count how many grains. Trying to do so would be tantamount to trying to count how many grains of sand whirl up when the west wind strikes the Libyan desert, or when the raging east wind falls upon the ships at sea. How many waves come in to break and shatter on the Ionian shore? However, to tell the truth, not everything can grow in the same place. Thus, willows grow by rivers, alders in boggy swamps. The sterile ash tree grows on rocky mountainsides. The seashore loves to have the myrtle grow there, and Bacchus loves the gentle open hills. The yew tree loves the cold north wind. And think of those regions out in the farthest boundaries, conquered by planting and tilling, the eastern countries of Arabs and tattooed Chilonians. Different trees have different regions to grow in. Black ebony grows in India alone, frankincense only where the Sabaeans dwell. Why tell of the balsam oozing from the bark, or of its aromatic wood? Why tell of the berries of the always leafy acanthus, or the groves of Ethiopia, white with wool that grows on the wool-bearing tree, or those of the Ceres, who comb their fine silk down from the branches of the silk tree? Why tell of that farthermost region of India, out at the end of the world, out next to the ocean, where the trees are so tall that no one can shoot an arrow beyond the high treetops, although the natives are skillful with the bow? In Media, where grows the citron tree with its restorative fruit, sour in taste and aftertaste. Suppose your cruel stepmother one day poisons your cup, muttering spells as she mixes in the herbs. The juice of its fruit will come to your body's aid, expelling the deadly venom from your veins. The tree is big and closely resembles the laurel. Indeed, if it weren't for the different fragrance it sheds, it might well be a laurel tree. No winds bring down its leaves, and its blossom is tenacious. The med makes use of it to sweeten its breath, and as medicine for an old man's wheezing breathing. Not Media, with its fabulous rich forests, nor the beautiful river Ganget, Ganges, nor the Hermus, the very mud of whose riverbed is gold, can bear comparison with Italy. Not Bactria, nor India, nor all Arabia with its perfumed sands. No teams of bulls with nostrils breathing fire have dragged their plows across fields to get them ready for sowing the monster's teeth of the Hydra dragon. Nor in the fields has there ever bristled up a yield of ranks of helmeted men and lances. Our fields are filled with crops abundantly growing, our vineyards with grapes of Bacchus's mosaic. Our country is the home of olive groves, the place where flocks and herds prospering dwell. Hence, in our plains, the proud war horse steps forth. Hence, river Clythymus, bathed in your sacred stream, the herds emerge snow white to graze in the fields, and the great majestic bull is sacrificed at the triumphs at the temple of the gods. Oh, wow. Here, spring outlasts itself, and summer goes on beyond the months allotted to itself. Twice every year, our livestock bear their young, and twice a year, our trees yield us their fruit. We have no ravaging tigers here, nor any lions here to spawn ferocious offspring. No deadly poison aconite to trick the unfortunate unwary one who picks it. No snake that winds his giant length around, or gathers his scaly self around himself in a coil within a coil within a coil. And then, there are so many wonderful cities that so much toil has built, and all those towns the hand of a man has made, high up upon the rocky cliffs above the mountain streams that flow along beneath their ancient walls. Nor shall I fail to sing the mighty lakes of you, great Larius, or Brenacus, you whose waters roar and seethe like ocean waters. Nor shall my song forget to tell of her harbors and the clamorous protests of the ocean waves, as the great seawall was built at Lake Lucrinus, and the echoing sounds were heard from far when the waters repulsed and baffled, were turned and driven into the channel cut to take them to Lake Avernus. Nor shall I forget our veins of silver and copper, and the gold that flows in our rivers lavishly. This land has engendered a powerful progeny. The Marsians, the Sabines, the Ligurians, experienced in putting up with hardship, the Volscian spearmen, the Mari, and the Dacians, the stalwart and battle Scipios, and the great Camilli, and you, the greatest of all, O Caesar, victor in Asia, out in its farthest limits, and now you have driven the cowardly Indian off and far away from the 7 hills of Rome. Then hail, Saturnian land, great mother of men, great mother of teeming crops. I undertake in honor of you a task that is from ancient days, has won such praise because it required such skill, daring to break the seal on the sacred spring, and sing Hesiod's song in Roman towns. We turn now to the subject of the nature of different kinds of soil, their strengths, their color, what each of them is best at bringing forth. First of all, where the ground's intraceable, and the hills unwelcoming, with thorns in the fields, the earth a thin white clay, with a lot of gravel, such a terrain as pleased with Minerva's grove of hardy, tenacious, long-lived olive trees. It's typical of such places that you'll find a plethora of oysters thriving, and their wild berries scattered everywhere. But a place that's level and fertile with soil, luxurious in having an abundance of sweet-tasting water, and with plenty of green herbage and the nutrients it yields. For instance, on the floor of a mountain valley, that mountain torrents come down from heights, bringing rich sediment with them as they come, and that faces south and sponsors the growth of ferns, those enemies of the curved blade of the plow. Such places promise the hardiest and the most prosperous of vines, from which will flow the beneficial streams of Bacchus' gift. Life-giving grape, life-giving in the grape, and in the wine, in the golden bowl we pour libation from, as the elegant Etruscan at the altar blows his horn, and as from massive platters the steaming sacrifice is offered up. If taking care of cattle and their calves is what you do, raising sheep or goats that devastate the crops, then you should seek wealthy tartanums, glades, and hilly meadows or plains like those unfortunate Mantua lost, where snow-white swans feed on the grassy river. In such place there will be ample pastures and clear, refreshing springs for your flocks to drink from, and what your herds have cropped all one long day, the cool dew will restore in one short night. A rich black soil that's crumbling even before the pressure of the plowshares felt upon it, so that the plowing almost seems to mimic a plowing that has already taken place. Soil that is almost always the best for growing grain. Nowhere else will you see so many loaded wagons making their way slowly back to their homes behind their bullocks. Or there's the land of angry plowmen. There's the land the angry plowman clears by cutting down the groves that stood untouched for many years, and carrying off the wood, and piling up the roots of the ancient homes of birds that now, unnested, seek the sky, and the virgin field lies shining under the plowshare. But the hilly places where the soil is meager, nothing but gravel, a few scanty bushes of rosemary and marjoram, are barely enough for the bees, and the rough porous tufa and the chalk of the venomous water snakes eat. That the venomous water snakes eat out deny that any other place provides snake food as sweet as this, or better holes for snakes to wind into to hide themselves. But if the soil breathes steaming vapors out, drinks moisture in, and when it wants to, breathes the moisture out again, and if it's always green, with the greenness of its grasses, and never corrode the blade of the plow with rust, then that's the place to drape your flourishing vines upon your elms, the place that will produce rich olive oil, the place, as the tilling will show, that makes the plowing easy for the beasts, because the soil easy for the plow. And this is what the land is like for plowing at Capua and near Vesuvius, and along the sides of the river Clanius, hostile to deserted Acerae. Now, I'll describe the methods used to tell the different kinds of soil from one another. If you want to determine if your soil is lighter than usual, or on the other hand, denser, the denser better for Ceres, the lighter for Bacchus, find a convenient spot and have your workers dig out a big pit in the solid ground. Then have them shovel the dirt they dug back in, and trample it down with their feet until it's level. If it doesn't entirely fill the hole, it's light, and best for pasture, or the kindling vine. But if they can't get all the dirt back in, and some is left over, then it's dense, and you can expect there will be some stubborn glebs, thick-clotted, heavy-going, calling for the oxen's weight and strength to break them up. Ugh. And then there's the salty soil known as the bitter, happy, unhappy for crops, untamable by the plow. The best of vines produce new generations unworthy of their lines. The reputations of the most illustrious families of fruits are ill-served here. Test for it. Do this. Take a closely woven wicker basket down from the smoky roof of your house and fill it up with this questionable soil, and then pour in fresh water from the spring. You'll see the water make its way through the big drops fall. Wait. You'll see the water make its way through, and the big drops will fall into the receptacle below. Then taste the water. The taste will tell the story. The taster's mouth grimacing from the bitter taste of it. And this is the only way to tell if a soil is rich or not. When you work it with your hands, rich soil won't fall apart. Instead, it's sticky and pliable in your hands, the way pitch is. Moist soil fosters over luxuriant foliage, being more fertile than it ought to be. Ah, not for me that too prolific earth. Let it not be too strong when the ears are new. A heavy soil will silently demonstrate how heavy it is by how heavy it feels in your hands. A light soil, too, by its lightness in your hands. The eye can easily see which soil is black and which some other color, but it's hard to tell by looking whether or not the soil is of the cursed cold sort. Only the presence of pine, black ivy, or sinister yew, perhaps sometimes, will tell you that it's there. Having considered all these things, take care to cut through the ridges of turf and lay the ground open to the wind and sun to bake it dry. All this before you plant joyous vine. The luckiest fields are those with crumbly soil. The winds and frosts will have taken care of it. And the sturdy laborer, too, whose task it is to loosen up the ground in preparation, but men who are so careful that nothing escapes their vigilant attention also look for fields that closely resemble one another. One, the nursery for the little vines, that the trees around them support. The other, to which the vines at the proper time can be carried over and planted out, so that the vines won't think, because of all the sudden change from place to place, that they've been taken from their mother. Indeed, these men notate in the bark of their trees exactly which region of the sky each plant faces towards. So, in the new field, replanted, they occupy the same position as in the nursery, facing the warmth from the south, in just the same way, their backs to the northern cold, just as before, such is the need, when young, of what's familiar. But first, you have to decide whether it's better to plant your vines on hills or a level plain. If the ground is level, plant them closer together. Bacchus is not less generous when they're planted closely in that fashion, but if the ground's hilly, terraced, or sloping upward, set them out widely. Whatever the terrain, be sure to place them so that the paths between them are always the same. Space out the plantings with exactitude, as when before the battle of cohorts are all deployed and ready, rank after regular rank. The gleam of steel reflecting the gleam of steel reflecting the gleam across the plain as far as the eye can see. And Mars, the god of war, not yet decided which army will be the victor, walks between them just so. Deploy your vines in equal numbers, so that the lines are uniform and straight, not merely for pleasure of the prospect, but so that the soil may give its strength to all. The vines in equal measure and their branches freely extend themselves upon the air. Perhaps the question is, how deep to dig the holes for planting. I trust a shallow trench for vines and trees, much deeper into the earth, especially the great oak tree, whose roots reach down as far as the underworld, and as far as the underworld as its crown extends into the ethereal sky. Therefore, no winter tempest, wind or rain can bring it down. It stands where it is unmoved. The generations pass, and still it's there, holding its great arms out, and towering there, enveloped in the darkness of its leaves. Oh, God damn, sleep hit me. Don't plant your vineyard sloping towards the sunset. Don't plant the hazel with its spreading roots among the vines. They never break off the topmost tendrils of the vines. I love the earth. Don't bruise your tender plants with a blunt knife, and never graft your olives to oysters. It has been known to happen that a neglectful shepherd has failed to see that a spark has lingered from a fire he thought he finished with, and so it catches under the bark of an olive tree and burns at the first unnoticed there, and then takes hold of the trunk, blows up from the leaves above, and sending a huge roar into the sky, then rages, conquering victorious through all the treetop branches of the grove, with the thick black viscous smoke churning upwards, and an event is so worse. Oh, holy shit. My eyes are just like tired. Such an event is worst of all if a storm comes crashing down from the heavens, its wind creating a fireball of the flames already burning. When something like this happens, there isn't strength enough in the roots to smite the smitten olive trees, to help them rise from the earth to flourish again. The barren oyster alone survives. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Oh. Don't let yourself be advised to plow the rigid soil of your field when the cold north wind is blowing. It's winter then, and the land is seized in frost. The ground refuses to accept the frozen root of the young plant if you plant it then. The very best time to set your young vines out is at the moment when spring begins to blush, and the white stork, whose scourge of snakes is seen, or the moment when summer has just begun to pass, and just before the first cold day of autumn, when the chariot of summer and its warmth has not yet reached the edge of the coming winter. It's spring that adorns the woods and grows with leaves in the spring the soil. Desiring seed is timid, and then the omnipotent Father God descends in showers from the sky and enters into the joyful bridal body of the earth. His greatness and her greatness and their union bring to life the life waiting to live. Birdsong is heard in every secluded thicket, and all the beasts of the fields have become aware that love's appointed days have come again. The generous earth is ready to give birth, and the meadows unbridle for Zephyr's warming breezes. The tender dew is there on everything. The new grass dares entrust itself to the new sons of the new days, and the little tendrils of the young vines have no fear of the south wind coming, nor of a north wind from a stormy sky. The vine brings forth its buds, its leaves unfold. I think it must have been that just such days as these were the shining days, when the world was new. Everywhere it was spring, the whole world over. The east wind held in check its winter winds. The beasts drank in the light of that first dawn. The first men born of the earth raised up their heads from the stony ground, and the woods were stocked with game. And the first stars came out in the sky above. Nor, wait. I think I skipped something. No, I didn't. Nor could the tender plants endure their lot if spring's relief were not to intervene between the heat of summer and winter's cold. And, in addition, manure your plantings with dung, and be sure to cover them well with plenty of soil, and maybe put porous stones or broken shells in the hole with them, so moisture will find its way and air will find its way to the little vines to give them encouragement. It's not unheard of to lay down heavy stones or heavy jars over the plantings, protection from drenched rain, or on the days when fields be cracked and gaping under the heat of the canicula, the dog star, the young vines have been set in place. Be sure to keep the earth well loosened around the roots, either by using your heavy hoe to work it, or using your plow, turning your laboring beasts this way then that, between the rows and vines, and fashioning shafts and stakes and forks and ash and cane and reeds and such to make a trellis or ladder to which the vines will learn to cling and climb from the tier to tier up to the top of their supporting elms, scorning the winds. Yeah, damn. Like, weirdly dizzy. It's. Hold on. While they're still very young, their leaves just new, go easy with them. Respect their tenderness. And while the tendril, joyful, puts itself forth, reaching up skyward into the air, unfeathered, do not attack the vine as yet with your knife. Be carefully with your fingers, pluck and pick, and then, when the vine has grown, embracing the elms with stronger stems, the time has come when you, before you're wary of the pruning knife, can strip away locks and clip off clinging arms, enforcing your stern domain to restrict the overflowing profusion of the branches. Then, too, you must be sure that there are hedges to keep the beasts away, especially when the leaves are young and tender, still ignorant of trouble and untested. Worse than winter's harshness and the tyranny of the sun are the buffalo and the deer when they can get in at the vines and make themselves free with them. And sheep and hungry heifers feed on them too. The coldest frost and the most oppressive heat that weighs down on a thrusting landscape don't do as half as much as the beasts with their venomous teeth and their scars of their gnawing on the helpless stems. This is the crime, no other, for which the goat is sacrificed to Bacchus all at all the altars. And old-time stage plays had their first beginning on such occasions, and rural villages were down at the nearby crossroads with singing contests and dancing on oiled goatskins in the meadows, and indeed, even today, in country places, with lots of laughing, and peasants put on fearsome meat masks made of hollowed cork, and chant their uncouth verses, and Bacchus sing their joyous songs to you, and on their pine tree branches hang little amulet faces that sway in the breeze. And so the vines grow ripe and lavishly bring forth their fruit, and every vale and glade is full to overflowing everywhere, to which the pleased God turns his beautiful face, so as is right for us to do, We'll sing our rustic songs in honor of the god, and, taking the goat by the horn, we'll lead him up to the sacrificial altar and otherwise roast the rich goat meat on spits of hazelwood. And then there's this other work that has yet to be done. The need for it never exhausted. 3 times a year, 4 times, you must turn the soil to open up, dragging the drag hoe backwards over and over to break up the clods. And the overgrowth of trees, the overgrowth of leaves, needs to be cut away to let the light through. The farmer's labor circles back on him as the seasons of the year roll back around to where they were and walk in their own footsteps. And as soon as the lunar year's old leaves have fallen and the cold north wind has taken shape, loose the lovely foliage of the autumn trees, the vigilant farmer will set himself to work preparing for the year to come, cutting and pruning and shaping with his carved Saturnian knife. So be the first to dig in the ground, and be the first to carry away the prunings and burn them. The first to see to it that the poles that supported the vines are safely stowed out for the winter weather. Be the last of all to leave for harvesting. 2 times a year, the menacing shade grows thicker on the vines. 2 times a year, the thorny weeds advance. Holy shit. I need a second. Hold on. Be right back. I realize I might need to stand for this one. So I am like passing out. Where am I? Claws, blah 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 blah. Echo over and over. Where am I? Did I read that part or no? Oops. Give me a moment, give me a moment. Fuck, where am I? Dung, I was at that part. The dung, there. The dung. And keep the beasts away. Where's the winters are tender. I think this is where I'm at. I just don't remember reading. Must be just in a flow state. Oh well, I'll just read this part. I'm sure it's fine. Shit, please. Thank you. This is the crime, no other, for which the goat is sacrificed to Bacchus at all the altars, and old-time stage plays had their first beginning on such occasions in rural villages. Or down at the nearby crossroads with singing contests and dancing on oiled goatskins in the meadows, and indeed, even today, in country places, with lots of laughing, the Peasants put on fearsome masks made of hollowed cork. I remember this part now. And chant their uncouth verses, and Bacchus sing their joyful songs to you. And on the pine tree branches hang little amulet faces that sway in the breeze. And so the vines grow ripe and lavishly bring forth their fruit. And every vale and glade is full to overflowing everywhere, to which the pleased God turns his beautiful face. So as is right for us to do, we'll sing our rustic songs in honor of the god, and taking the goat by the horn, we'll lead him up to the sacrificial altar, and afterwards roast the rich goat meat on spits of hazelwood. And then there's this other work that has to be done, the need for it never exhausted. 3 times a year, 4 times you must turn the soil to open it up, dragging the drag hoe backwards over and over. Over and over. To break up the clods and the overgrowth of leaves need to be cut away to let the light through. The farmer's labor circles back on him as the seasons of the year roll back around to where they were and walked in their own footsteps. And just as soon as the year's old leaves have fallen and the cold north wind has shaken loose the lovely foliage of autumn trees, the vigilant farmer will set himself to work preparing for the year to come, cutting and pruning and reshaping with his curved Saturnian blade. So, be the first to dig in the ground, the first to carry away the prunings and burn them, the first to see to it that the poles that supported vines are safely stowed out of the winter weather. Be the last of all to leave off harvesting. 2 times a year, the menacing shade grows thicker on the vines. 2 times a year, the thorny weeds advance. Hard labor to fight them off in either case. Admire a big estate, but farm a small one. And beyond these tasks, there's still more work to be done. Wands of sharp-pointed broom that grows in the woods need to be cut, and reeds from the riverbank. The beds of the wild willow shoots need to be cared for. And now the vines are tied, and the pruning knife is put aside. And now the worker sings as he comes to the end of the last rank of the vines. Yet after that, you'll still have the work of keeping the earth loosened up around the tied vines. And still, you'll have to worry of whether or not Jupiter's storm will descend on your ripened grapes. I found something even better. Hold up. Put it up here. I can still see. I can still stand. But olive trees need nothing like such care. Since they've taken hold, they neither expect the harrying attentions of the mattock or the crooked pruning knife. Let me fix this shit. I got it. There we go. It's there. It's there. I don't know why this keeps twisting, but it's good enough. Earth of herself provides sufficient moisture and an abundant yield of olives. When the lightly hoed or plowed, this is the way to nurture the olive tree. The ferret smiled upon the goddess peace. And it's the same with fruit trees. Once they feel they've come into their strength of self-reliance, they rapidly strive up towards the starry sky. And they do so by themselves, without our labor, and every grove meanwhile grows heavy, burdened with burgeoning fruit. The crimson berries redden the wild, uncultivated haunts of birds. The cistus plant is there for cattle to browse on. High woods yield resinous pine tree branches for torches to light the nocturnal fires in people's houses. Their fires shine in the darkness of the night. What need have I for a loftier song to sing? The humble broom and osier can provide fodder for cattle and shade for the resting herdsman, a hedge for the plants and food for the honeybee. It's a cause for joy to see the box trees waving upon the sides of Mount Sitoris, and see Naricum's pitch pine forests, and to look at fields that never felt what the harrow does, nor ever were subject to human discipline, the barren woods high up on Caucasian peaks, battered and torn by the angry east wind's fury, nevertheless have useful things to give. Pine wood for boats, cedar for cypress for houses, cedar and cypress for houses, wood for farmers to use and make their wheel spokes, or to make spokeless drum wheels for their wagons, and wood to make the keels for boats at sea. The gifts the willow gives are its willow's wands, and elm its leaves. The gift of myrtle and cornel are the shafts for making spears that they provide weapons for war. Of yew trees, it's the way Parthian bows can be made from their bent branches, and lindens too, and boxwood cut and shaped and polished by the lathe for various uses. Boats are made from buoyant alderwood to swim upon the raging waters of Po, and swarms of bees can make their hives in hollow cork trees or the bellies of rotting alders. What gifts like these has Bacchus ever brought us? Bacchus, indeed, has given cause for blame. He brought about the maddened centaur's death, Rhodius, Pholus, and riotous Haleus, with his great wine flagon menacing the Lapiths. Oh, greatly fortunate farmers! If only they knew how lucky they are. Far from the battlefield, earth brings forth from herself in ample justice the simple means of life, simply enjoyed. What if there's no great mansion from whose proud high doors at the dawn the crowd of those who came the evening before to flatter the lord of the place pours out? What if the farmer has never gazed in open-mouthed astonishment at such doors as those doors, adorned with tortoiseshell, or draperies tricked out with gold, or bronzes brought from Ephraius? What if no dye imported from Assyria has ever stained his pure white woolen cloth? What if the clear, plain daily olive oil he uses has never been sophisticated by the mingling in of oil of cassia bark? His sleep at night is easy. His life knows nothing about deceit or trickery, and his life is rich in many things. Tranquility of the broad fields, of grottos and of lakes, cattle lowing? Yeah, of cattle lowing while in the shade of trees. The herdsman peacefully dozes. They have all this. They have forest glades and haunts of beasts to hunt. A youth accustomed to simplicity, undisciplined by work, respect for the elders, and for the gods. When justice left the earth, she left her footprint here among such people. But as for me, oh, may the gracious muses, gracious beyond all else, whose holy emblems I consecrated bear in the procession, grant me their favor and reveal to me courses of the stars above the heavens. Teach me about the sun and its eclipse, and about the many labors of the moon. What is it that causes quakings of the earth? What force is it that suddenly makes the great sea rise and swell and break through all restraints, and then subside into itself again? Why is it that the sun in winter hurries to plunge itself into the sea? And why is it the winter night so slow to come to an end? But if the blood around my heart's too cold to gain me access to such mighty knowledge, then may I find delight in rural fields, and the little brooks that make their way through the valleys, and in obscurity love the woods and rivers. I long for such places. Oh, I long to be Spiricus, or at Tartagida in Sparta, where maidens celebrate the rites of Bacchus, or to be safe in the cool Himalayan glade, protected in the shade of those great branches. That man is blessed who has learned the causes of things, and therefore under his feet subjugates fear and the decrees of unrelenting fate and the noise of Acheron's unsatiable waters. He too is happy who knows the country gods, the sister nymphs and Pan, and old Sylvanus. He's undisturbed by worldly honors, or by the purple worn by kings, or by the strife of faithless brother fighting faithless brother, or by the legend barbarians from the north, Dacians and their allies from the Donby, or by the skill of Roman power causing dynasties across the world to perish. He neither looks with pity on the poor, nor does he look with envy at the rich. He takes from his fields and from his orchard boughs what they have offered of their own free will, nor does he have experience of the iron hard-heartedness of the law, the form's madness, insolence, and bureaucratic office. There are those who with their oars disturb the waters of dangerous unknown seas, and those who rush against the sword, and those who insinuate their way into the chamber of a king. There's the one who brings down ruin on a city and all its wretched households, in his desire to drink from an ornate cup and go to sleep on Tyrian purple coverlets at night. There's the man who heaps up gold and hides it away, hovering watchfully over it like a lover. There's he who stares up stupefied at the rostrum. There's the open-mouthed, undone astonishment of the one who hears the waves and waves of the wild applause of the close-packed crowd in the theater. There are those who bathe in their brother's blood, rejoicing, and those who give up house and home for exile, seeking a land his alien sun shines on. The farmer works the soil with his curved plow, and this is the work he does, and it sustains his country and his family and his cattle, his worthy bullocks and his herd of cows. No rest from this, but the year will abound with fruits, with newborn livestock, and with cereal sheaves, filling the fields and overflowing the barn. Then winter is coming, the olive press is turning, the pigs come home well fed, made happy by acorns. The woods offer arbutus, and autumn yields all its variety, high up on the rocks. The year's vintage mellows in the sunshine. The farmer's simple house is pure and chaste. His children gather around him for his kisses on the joyful lawn. The little goats fight their battles, butting their horns. The cows' udders are full. Holiday time for the farmer, at ease on the grass, the fire going, and friends wreathing the wine bowl. He pours a libation, Bacchus, in honor of you, while for the game of darts, some of the shepherds put up a dart on a nearby elm, and others of them bare their sturdy limbs, all ready for the rustic wrestling matches. This is what it was like for the Sabines then, and for Romulus and Remus in the old days. This must have been how Etruria grew strong, and Rome became the most beautiful thing there is. One single wall surrounding several hills. Indeed, before the reign began of the king, born on the Cretan mountains, and before impious men first feasted and on slaughtered bullocks. This was the way it was for the golden Saturn, before the time when anyone had heard the loud blare of a military trumpet or the clanging of a sword on the hard anvil. But now we have come a great long way, and now time has come to unyoke our steaming horses. I will probably. I'm kind of into this right now. Um, an hour and 10. Oh. Um, I don't think I'm going to finish the book tonight. I think there's 4 Georgics. I thought there were 4. Let me see. Don't care about the notes, glossary. Not reading that. Yeah, it seems like there's just 4. I'm definitely not going to finish the 3rd tonight. Let me think. I'll find a good place to stop, but I'm gonna keep reading. And now, great Pales, we will sing of you, and you, O famous shepherd of the Amphirosis, and you, O streams and forests of Lycaeus, those other songs that might have brought delight once more to idle minds, have all been sung so many times. Who has not already heard the story of the harsh king Eurystheus? Who has not heard of cruel Bessarus' altars? So many have sung the song of Helios lost, or the story of Latonus and her Delos, or of Hippodamia and her ivory-shouldered Philippus and his horses. I too must find way to rise in flight above the earth, triumphant on the speech of men, for I will be the first, if life be granted me, to bring the muses home from Helicon to my native country. Mantua, I'll bring the Idumean palms to you, and on the green fields there beside your river, great meniscus flow meandering between his banks, on which the reeds profusely grow. I'll build a temple made of Parian marble, and Caesar will be seated in the center. Victorious I, in Tyrian purple clad, will cause 100 4-horse chariots to course along the banks in Caesar's honor. For me, all Greece will leave Molochorus' grove, and Alpheus behind, and they will come, competitors in the racing and the boxing, wearing our spiked and weighted Roman gloves, and I, crowned with a wreath of olive leaves, will be the president of the games, and give the prizes to the winners. Already now, I long to see the procession as it moves in ceremonial order to the shrine, and be a witness to the sacrifice of bullocks, and to see the changing scenes as Britons pictured on the crimson curtains, pull on the ropes to raise those curtains up. And on the pictured portals of the shrine, I'll show fashioned in gold and ivory, the battle with the Gangarids and the arms of Romulus, who was defied, and show the overflowing of the river Nile, billowing with warfare. And there'll be great columns rising high, adorned with bronze trophies of navies that Roman power had taken, images of the defeated cities of Asia, beaten Neophytes, Parthians launching arrows over their shoulder even as they flee. Two monuments of Rome past victories seized from foes in faraway places in the world, and marble statues standing all about, looking as if they were alive and breathing. The children and children's children of Asacaras, and those famous naiads descended from Jove. Through Tros, our parent, and Scythian Apollo, founder of the city that we came from, envy, wretched, and fear will quail before the Furies and the terrible river Cocytus, and Ixion's frightful wheel and serpent chains, and the unrelenting stone of Sisyphus. Now, we must go by your command. Masoneus to the forests of the Dryads and the glades no one has ever trodden on before. The way is hard. Without your help, my mind could never undertake to reach such heights. Therefore, without delay, let us begin. Cytheron clamors, the Spartan hounds are barking, and Epidaurus, tamer of horses, calls. The sound reverberates, redoubled and redoubled by the woods as they applaud, and soon I'll gird myself to tell the tales of Caesar's brilliant battles and carry his name in story across many future years. As the years that have gone by from the long ago birth of Tithonius to that of Caesar himself. He who breeds horses hoping to win the prize, or he who breeds bullocks to make them strong for plowing, whichever of these, had better pay special attention to what the mothers look like. The best-looking cow looks fierce, with a great thick neck, an ugly head, and dewlaps hanging down from her jaws to her legs, extremely long in the flank, everything big about her, including her feet. Her big ears shaggy under her curving horns, nor would I be displeased to see white markings, or that she is rebellious at the yoke. With an unpredictable horn you will watch out for, her expression's more like a bull's than a cow's. Tall beast, her long tail sweeps her footprints as she walks. The proper time for motherhood and mating falls between the 4th year and the 10th. After that time, she's no longer suitable, nor is she strong enough to work for plowing. But while she's in this youthful fertile time, let the young males out, loose and free in the fields, and be the first to see the annual mating. Over and over, renew your stock by breeding. The best days of life for all poor mortal creatures are the soonest to be gone. Then illness comes, and sad old age and trouble and pitiless death soon carry us away. There'll always be cows that you'll want to sell or trade because they don't look the best for breeding, so be sure to replace them with the others. Before you come to regret it, be sure new young are born year after year. The same standards apply for raising horses. Be sure you take exceptional pains with those that from earliest days of their lives show signs they'll be best for stud. Right from the first, the foal of a superior breed will show that he is a higher stepper than all the other foals there are in the fields, and puts his feet more lightly down again on the soft turf. He'll always be the one to lead the rest. He'll dare to cross the threatening stream. He'll try the bridge he'd never tried before. He won't startle or shy at an unfamiliar noise. His neck's erect, his clean-cut head held high, his belly's tight, and his strong back is broad. His noble chest is packed with powerful muscle. Chestnut and gray are best for elegance, White and dun are the least desirable colors, and if he hears a faraway sound of war, he pricks his flickering ears. He can't stay still. He trembles with excitement in every limb, breathing out pent-up fire from snorting nostrils. And when he tosses his head, his copious mane falls back over onto his right shoulder. The spine along his loin is a double ridge. His horn hoof strikes the earth with a ringing sound. This is what Pollux's Cyrillus was like, and what those horses were like, which the Greek poets told us about, the two yoked horses of Mars and great Achilles' pair. And this is what Saturn himself was like, his thick mane flowing over his shoulders as, seeing his wife, he fled, his whinnying herd to the top of Pelion Mountain. Yet, such a wonderful creature is this, when, either because of sickness or because of the passage of years, he begins to become less than he was, you put him away in his stall, without regard for the shame of his old age. When the stallion gets old, he's cold in matters of love. When he comes to that field of battle, he struggles frustrated, trying to deal his unwelcome plight. It's as it is when in a field of stubble, a great fire rages, and rages to no avail, so therefore be respectful of his age, and his great heart, the deeds he has performed, the lineages of excellence he derives from, his grief when he experiences defeat, his joy when he has won victory. You've seen it, how the chariots flood out onto the track from the starting place. You've seen them headlong into frenzied competition, all drivers' hearts pounding with frantic hope of being the first and fear of being the last. And on they go, and round after lap after lap, the fiery wheels revolving, the drivers flailing their whips, now bending low, stooping over the reins, now rising up. It looks like they're being carried, flying up and out into the air. No stopping them, no rest. Clouds of yellow sand blown back in the eyes of those who follow after. The foaming breath of the gasping, panting horses, wetting the backs of the chariot drivers ahead. So great their love of glory, so great their love of victory. Brave Ericonius was the first to yoke 4 horses to a chariot and to stand triumphant up there over the whirling wheels. The Pelithornian Lapiths were the first to mount on horseback and to bridle horses and train them to circle and wheel, and they were the first to teach a man in all his armor to leap on a horse's back and gallop across the plain, and proudly put his steed through all its paces. The trainers want a hot-blooded, lusty youth with an eager spirit either for race or war. Remember that the other one, the old stallion in the stall, was he who drove the enemy before him and claims descent from the horses of Epirus or brave Massanet, or back through ancient days to Neptune himself. When the mating time is soon to come around, great care is taken over the body to him, who's chosen to be the master of the herd, the lord and husband. They bring him plenty of fresh spring water, lots of barley, and flowering grasses. They've cut for him to keep him fat and fit for the work of making love, and to ensure that no weak offspring be born who carries the weakness of a father into the future. But at the very same time, when in the mares there are voluptuous familiar stirrings, the leafy food of mares is scanted on purpose, in order to make them as lean as possible. They're kept away from going to the springs, and in the harvest season when the floor shakes and groans with the threshing of the corn and the chaff is blown about in the freshing breeze, They gallop them a lot when the sun is hot to tire them out, doing this to keep the readiness of the procreative soil from being dulled and its furrows clogged and sluggish, so that its thirsty field will eagerly seize the entering seed and store it within. Then it's the turn of care for the fathers to lapse, and the turn of care for the mothers to begin. When the pregnant mares are wandering about this way and that because their time is near, let no one hitch them up to the heavy plow. You have to restrain the cows from moving around too vigorously while grazing in the fields. Keep them from leaping as they go, and keep them from getting into rivers, breasting swift currents. At this time of the year, men pasture them in quiet forest glades, alongside quiet rivers full to the brim, where the greenest of grass grows on the river banks, and where there's moss for them to graze on, sheltering grottos and rocks that cast long shadows over them to protect them. In the ilex groves of Solaris, and among the green holm oak trees of Alberners, there is a winged insect called by men the gadfly, Acelus in our Latin, Osterus in Greek, fierce creature with a piercing, hideous wail. Whole herds hysterical, hearing it, will scattered, bellowing through the woods, the noise of their madness stunning the air, the trees, and Tanager's banks. Using this frightful monster long ago was Juno's way of taking her revenge on Inachus of Argus, daughter of Io. Gadfly attacks are the worst in the heat of noon. To keep them away from your herds, graze them just after the sun has come up in the morning, or when the stars, as they come out, are bringing on the night. Next is the turn of special care for the calves. Almost as soon as the calves are born, they're branded, with their own mark and the mark of the stock they belong to. Some of this are selected to be raised for breeding, some set aside to be brought to the holy altars, some destined to plow the ground and churn the clods, the rest of them left to browse in green meadows. Begin the training early for those who've chosen to work on the farm. Begin while they're still young, their spirits docile and easy to discipline. First, loosely tie around their necks a circle of osier wands or some pliant shoots, and after a little while, their free necks having become accustomed to their servitude, tie the young bullocks together 2 by 2, collar tethered by collar, make them learn to walk together, step by step, a pair. Then, have them practice pulling an empty cart back and forth on the place, leaving faint signs of a cartwheel tracks and their own tracks on the sand, and later on, let the straining beechwood axle of a loaded wagon groan as the wheels are dragged along the ground, pulled by a brass-bound pole. And while they're young, and not yet broken in to the yoke and wagon, don't feed them only on hay or skimpy willow leaves or sedge from the marshes. Feed them on grain you've picked for them by hand, and don't fill up the snowy milking pail as your fathers did, withholding from her dear children some portion of their mother's bounty. But let her udders yield it all to them. But if what you have in mind for your horse instead is war and a proud fierce cavalry, or else racing your gliding flying chariot along the banks of Pis's Alphean waters, or through the Olympian grove of Jupiter, the first thing that the young foal has to learn is to look upon the armor of the warriors and listen to the music of martial trumpets, and the groaning noise as they are pulled along of the wheels of the military cars, and the jangling noise of halter bit and bridle in the stable, rejoicing more and more in his trainer's plaudits and the sound of his trainer's hands patting his neck. And after he's weaned from his mother, let him be persuaded once in a while, though weak and trembling, not knowing yet what life is about, to accept a soft halter strap into his tender mouth. When his fourth summer has come around, then have him begin to canter and gallop on the track, and work him very hard to show him how to put his feet down evenly as he runs, making a perfectly regular pattern of sounds. And after he's mastered that, and when he's ready, then let him challenge the winds to race with him, as he flies across the open plains as if utterly free of reins, and leaving behind him scarcely a trace of his footsteps in the sand. As when Aquilo, the great north wind, sweeps down from the Hyborian coasts and scatters dry clouds and Scythian storms before it in its way. And the deep fields of grain and the watery lowlands shiver and tremble under the gentle gusts, and the rattling sounds in the high treetop are heard, and the long waves roll in towards the waiting shore, and the wind flies on, sweeping both land and sea. It is such a horse as this will be the one laboring towards the Olympic finish line, but pouring with its body foaming mouth, lap after lap, around the great race course. Or better still, he'll be the one whose neck docilely will accept the snaffle and halter of the chariot of war. Wait until after the process of breaking in is done, before you fatten him up with a diet of mash. If they get too big before they're broken in, they'll rebel against the whip or the cruel bit. And that is where I'm going to stop. It's a very good place to stop. Yeah. I was about to fucking pass out while reading, I won't lie to you. But here I am. So, well, hour 30. It's good. I probably will pass out after this fucking stream, but it's been fun. After this, I need to go to the library and get a book, because, my bookshelf is not very extensive. It has mostly picture books. Maybe I'll show them one day, but they're not really much for reading. But yeah, hopefully calmed you down at least. But we will be back on Monday, same time, same channel, to finish the Georgics hopefully, and by that time I'll probably have a new book for you. So yeah. But I am your host, Buddha, and I hope you have a good night and a wonderful Friday.